The wind was loud that night, like a wild animal crying across the frozen land. Snow fell like white dust from the black sky. The cold was deep and painful. Even machines froze outside. The outpost lights blinked in the storm, small and weak. Like candles in the dark inside the outpost, 4 humans sat near a heater, their faces tired, their clothes thick. They talked softly, no one laughed. They had been on this lonely planet for 6 months now, working and waiting for orders, waiting for news, waiting for something. An alarm beeped. Red lights blinked on the screen. A camera outside had found something. Someone. Sergeant Dallin stood first, his voice calm but sharp. He told everyone to stay alert. Commander Lena walked to the monitor, her face serious, her eyes cold but sharp. Like glass, she saw the image on the screen, and her hand stopped moving outside. 2 figures stood in the snow, one tall, one small. The tall one held the small one close. Both were shaking. Both looked weak, thin, like they had not eaten for days. The tall one stepped forward, lifted her hands, not in attack but in peace. Her skin was not human. It was a soft gray blue. Her eyes large and black like deep water. Her voice came through the speaker. Broken but soft. "We just want a warm meal, please," the voice said. The wind cut through the sound. But the words were clear. "We just want a warm meal." Commander Lena did not speak for a long moment. Then she said one word. The camera zoomed in, and now they could see more clearly. The tall one had no shoes, her feet red from the cold. The small one was a child, her arms wrapped around her mother, her eyes looking up at the camera, wide and scared. "They are aliens," said one soldier. "Private Corey. We cannot let them in. It could be a trap, a trick. They always use children to fool us." "Maybe," said Sergeant Dallin, "but maybe not. Look at them. They are freezing." Then he turned to Commander Lena. "What should we do?" Commander Lena looked at the screen again. The child blinked slowly, her face pale, her small fingers clutching her mother's coat. And then the child looked into the camera. Straight into it, like she could see them watching her. And her eyes, for just a moment, glowed faintly, like small stars. Commander Lena stepped back, her breath slow, her voice low. "Open the door." "What?" said Private Corey. "Are you sure I said open the door?" Lena said again, and she walked to the entrance. Herself, the metal door creaked as it opened. Cold wind rushed inside like a ghost. Snow flew in small circles. Then the 2 aliens stepped in. Slow and careful, the mother held her daughter tightly. The girl's feet were blue from the cold, her skin thin like paper. The mother looked around, afraid, but said nothing. "Thank you," the mother said, her voice weak, but full of something older. Something wise. "We mean no harm." The humans stood in silence, watching. No one moved. Only the heater buzzed in the corner. Commander Lena pointed to the bench near the fire. "Sit there. Warm yourselves." The alien mother nodded. Sat down slowly. The child leaned against her, eyes still wide, still watching, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. "What's your name?" Lena asked, but the alien mother only shook her head, then pointed to the child. "Her name is Yari. She is all I have now." The storm grew louder outside, wind banging the walls, the night darker than before. Private Corey whispered to another soldier, "I do not trust them. This is wrong." The radio buzzed on and off, lights flickered. Something strange in the air, like a storm inside the walls too. The girl looked at the radio, touched it with one small finger, and for 1 second, the broken radio made a loud sound, like a scream or a message. No one could tell. Sergeant Dallin stepped forward. "Wait, did she just fix the radio?" Lena said nothing, her eyes now on the child, who stared back without fear, like she knew something they did not. Lights blinked again. Then the power shut off for 2 seconds. Everything went black in that short darkness. No one spoke. And then, just as the power came back, a small whisper filled the room. "They're coming," said the child. No one had moved, but the voice was clear, soft and full of warning. Everyone turned slowly to the girl. Her mouth was closed, but her eyes were glowing again, and the snow outside began to fall faster, harder, like something was hiding inside it. Moving closer, Commander Lena looked at the door, then at the child, and for the first time that night, she felt something colder than the storm fear. The room was quiet after the whisper. Everyone stood still, no one blinked. The child sat close to her mother, her face calm, her eyes open like deep night. The storm outside did not stop. The wind howled louder than before, as if answering her voice. Private Corey moved slowly to the cowie corner, picked up his rifle, not pointing it, just holding it tighter. The others watched him but said nothing. No one knew what to do. The child had not moved, not 1 inch. She just watched Commander Lena walk toward the alien mother. Her voice calm but firm. "What do you mean by they are coming? Who are they? What do they want?" The alien mother looked at her child, then back at Lena, her voice low like the wind. "They are called the Black Ones. They follow us from star to star. We ran far, but they are never far behind. They eat light, they eat warmth. They eat voices too." Private Corey scoffed quietly. "Stories to scare children," but the girl looked at him without fear. Her gaze, sharp like glass, and the heater behind her began to hum louder. The heat rising slowly, as if responding to her. Sergeant Dallin stepped forward. "We need answers, not magic tricks. Who are you really? Why are you here?" The alien mother said her name was Solari. Once she was part of a great explorer fleet. They searched for peaceful planets. They studied stars and shared knowledge. But one day her ship found something in deep space, something old and broken and sleeping. When they touched it, it woke up. And the Black Ones came. They destroyed our ships, said Solari. They whispered in our minds. They showed us fire and silence and death. We ran, we hid, we ran again. Only me and my daughter are left. The power flickered again, lights blinking fast like scared eyes. The radio made soft scratching sounds, like a whisper trying to find a voice. Sergeant Dallin checked the door locks. Private Corey stared at the girl, his grip on the rifle tighter now. "She is not just a child," he said. "Her eyes are not normal, and the machines act strange around her." Lena raised her hand. Silent, she walked to the child, sat on one knee, looked her in the eye. "What is your name?" she asked gently. "Ari," said the girl, her voice quiet, almost like wind on water. "Can you tell us what you see?" asked Lena. The girl pointed to the window. "Out into the storm. They are not here yet, but they are close. They come like hunger. They bring cold, the kind that eats everything." She looked at the broken radio again. Her finger touched it once more, and for a second, just 1 second, the radio played a sound. It was not a voice or music. It was like a scream underwater, full of pain and fear and space. Then silence. The humans stared, unsure what they had heard, unsure what it meant. That night, no one slept. 2 guards stayed at the door, weapons ready. Commander Lena read reports on her tablet, but the signal was weak. The weather jammed everything. Or maybe it was not just the weather. Solari and Yari sat close near the heater, wrapped in old blankets, their bodies still cold, but warmer now. The girl leaned her head on her mother's shoulder, her eyes still opening. The middle of the night. The sensors beeped again, motion in the distance, something moving slowly toward the outpost. Sergeant Dallin checked the screen. It was just a broken drone, metal crushed and burned. It dragged itself across the snow, wires like black veins. "How did it get this far?" said one soldier. "This drone was lost weeks ago." Private Corey looked at Lena. "This is no longer a shelter. This is a trap." Lena stared at the girl, who was still watching the snow through the window, like she could see beyond it. Morning came, but the sun did not. Just gray light through thick clouds, more snow, more cold. And the girl stood quietly near the door. She touched the metal with her hand. The door made a soft sound, like a song trying to be born. Lena asked her what she was doing. The girl said, "Just listening." Later, the team checked nearby communications outposts. One had gone silent, completely offline. No signal, no answer. It had 10 people. Sergeant Dallin wanted to send a scout team. Lena said no, not yet, not until we know more. That evening, the girl drew on the table with her finger, lines and shapes and circles. Symbols no one understood but one man, Dr. Venn, the technician, stared in silence. He had seen these before, in ruins on a far moon, ruins that were older than history, older than language. He whispered to Lena, "Those are not drawings, those are warnings." And just then, the girl spoke again, still looking at her symbols. "They are hungry." Everyone turned, and once more the heater dropped in power, the air colder than before. The girl looked up, her voice soft and steady. "Tonight, they will test the walls." The night came again, without stars, without a moon, without peace. The wind grew stronger and colder, like sharp hands scratching the walls of the outpost. The snow fell thick like a curtain, covering everything, hiding every shape and every sound inside. The outpost, the humans stayed awake, their eyes tired, their bodies heavy, but fear kept them moving. Commander Lena stood near the main window, her arms crossed, her mind racing through questions without answer. Yari, the child, sat quietly beside the wall, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, her small fingers drawing on the metal floor. The same symbols again and again, her voice soft and distant as she whispered something no one could hear. Sergeant Dallin checked the weapons twice, then again, his hands steady, but his thoughts loud. Private Corey cleaned his rifle slowly, his eyes on the girl, as if waiting for her to change into something else. Venn sat with a notebook full of strange signs and lines copied from Yari's drawings. His lips moved as he tried to read a language that no longer belonged to any living world. Solari, the alien mother, watched her daughter with love and fear both in her eyes. She whispered prayers from a forgotten star, hoping someone out there still listened. Suddenly, the alarm screamed once more. The camera near the western ridge caught something tall and slow moving through the snow. Its shape was not clear, just shadows and motion and silence. Everyone rushed to the screens, breathing heavy. No one spoke for long seconds, until Lena asked one question. "What is that thing?" Moved without sound, without heat, without life, but the snow behind it melted, as if the cold was running away from it. Yari stood now, her eyes locked on the screen, her voice steady. "They are here, not all of them, just one, to watch, to smell, to remember us." Private Corey looked at her, his voice sharp. "What do you mean, to smell us?" She turned to him, her face calm like stone. "They are hunters. They remember by scent, by sound, by thought. When they find your fear, they follow it forever." Sergeant Dallin moved to the control panel, sealed the doors, increased the shield power, but the shield blinked once like a heartbeat, skipping. Commander Lena ordered everyone to the lower level. They gathered food, water, medical kits. They prepared for something without a name. Later in the night, a knock echoed on the steel gate, not loud, not soft, just there. No one moved. The knock came again, then silence, then a soft scrape like nails over ice. Private Corey shouted, "This is a trick, just like I said. We let them in, and now something is playing games with us." Dr. Venn pointed at the floor. The symbols Yari had drawn were glowing faint blue light, moving like waves. The girl was not touching them, yet they moved like breath. The lights flickered again. The heater dropped. The cold pushed into the room like fingers reaching under skin. Solari stood in front of the girl, arms wide like a shield, her voice low. "Stay back," she warned them all. "If you frighten her, the walls will fall." Then the power went out completely. No lights, no sound, no heat, just blacken. That deep silence, they all heard it, breathing, slow and hungry. Someone lit a small emergency lamp, its weak light shaking in Private Corey's hand. They looked around, counting each face. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then a sound behind the wall, metal bending like it was made of paper. Yari whispered again, "They are testing us, testing your fear. They do not attack first, they study, they wait." Sergeant Dallin pulled Lena aside. "We must call for backup. We must send a distress signal, but the radio is dead." Dr. Venn said, "The girl can fix it. Maybe she already did once. Maybe she can do more." Lena nodded, told him to ask her. He walked to Yari, knelt down, spoke gently. "Can you help us? Can you send a message?" Yari blinked slowly, then looked at the wall, then at the ceiling, then at the air. She placed her hand on the radio, and nothing happened for 10 long seconds. The radio sparked and lit up, and a voice came through, faint, broken, strange. It said, "We hear you, we see you, we found them." Everyone froze even. Yara, that was not our command station. That voice was not human. Yari pulled her hand back quickly. The radio went silent. Lena turned to Solari. "What was that? Who answered us?" Solari's eyes were wide, her mouth shaking. "They know we are here. Now they were not sure before, now they are." She took her daughter's hand. "We must leave, we must run again, or you must hide us far below where no light reaches." Private Corey slammed his hand on the table. "We should not have let them in. They are the reason this thing is here, Sergeant." Dallin stood between them. "Stop shouting," he said. "Fear feeds it, do not feed it." Outside the wind stopped, no sound, no snow, no breath. And in that sudden stillness, Yari whispered, "They are not alone. Now another has come, one stronger, one hungry, not for food but for memory, Commander." Lena whispered back, "Then we will not sleep tonight." The silence after the storm felt wrong, too heavy, too deep, like the planet itself had stopped breathing, like something ancient had opened its eyes under the snow and was now watching from below. "Commander." Lena stood near the broken window, her breath showing in the cold, her eyes fixed on the endless white outside, her thoughts tangled with fear and doubt and something else, something she could not name. Ari stood beside her, small and still, her face turned to the sky, her hands folded in front of her, as if waiting for something. Not from the ground but from above. Solari sat against the wall, her body tired, her skin pale, her eyes red from no sleep, her voice soft when she spoke to her daughter. "We should not have stayed this long, we should have kept moving." Sergeant Dallin checked the shield controls again. Though he already knew they would not help against what was coming, he pressed the buttons anyway, hoping for a miracle, hoping for a delay. Private Corey cleaned his weapon again, the same one he had cleaned 10 times that day, his hands moving like a machine, his mind screaming quietly inside his skull. Dr. Then stared at the wall where Yari's symbols had begun to glow again, this time brighter, this time faster, as if something was getting closer, something that understood the signs and was answering back. "Commander." Lena turned to the girl and asked, "Why are they after you? What makes you so important?" Yuri looked up, her voice clear and calm. "I am the last piece of something, lost long ago. They need me to remember what they forgot." Lena asked, "What do they want to remember?" Yari said, "How to open the sky." And one spoke for a while after that. Later that evening, the clouds broke for the first time in days, and the stars showed through, sharp and bright and cold and wrong. Dr. Then went outside with permission, walked carefully to the upper sensor array, tried to reconnect the long-range scanner, tried to see what was above. What he found was not a star map. The screen showed a dark shape in orbit, massive and silent, and shaped like a claw around the planet. It had no lights, no engines, no sound, but it was there, pressing against the edge of space, like a nightmare that refused to vanish. He ran back inside, breath frozen on his face, told the others, "We are not alone. Something is waiting up there, not flying, just sitting and watching." Yeri walked to the center of the room, looked up as if she could see through the ceiling. Her hands began to move, drawing shapes in the air, symbols spinning around her fingers. Solari gasped, "Not those, please, not those again." But it was too late. The symbols floated and flickered, and one by one, they sank into the floor, and into the walls, and into the machines. The lights dimmed, then brightened, then turned blue. The radio buzzed once, then again. Then it spoke, a deep voice, not human, not loud, just deep and slow, like stone sliding across metal. "We remember you," it said. "We lost our path," it said. "You are the key," it said. Private Corey stepped back, shouted at Yari to stop, screamed that she was bringing doom to them. Yari turned to him, her eyes glowing, her voice still gentle. "I am not bringing them. They were always here. I am just waking what you forgot to see." Then the floor shook, not from below, but from within. The power surged, then failed, then surged again. Then grabbed his tablet, stared at the data, and whispered, "This outpost was built over ancient metal, deep underground, buried before we even landed, buried before this planet had snow." Solari held her daughter tight, her voice cracked. "We tried to hide her from this, from them, from you, but it was always her path, Commander." Lena felt the ground under her boots pulsing like a heartbeat. She looked at Yari, asked quietly, "What are Yao?" Yari blinked once slowly. "I am memory, I am message. I am what was left behind when the stars closed their mouths." Then she touched the floor, and her eyes turned white for a second. Everyone saw something, not with their eyes but with their thoughts. They saw giant ships falling from space, stars being eaten from the inside, black shapes crawling between galaxies, and a single light standing against them all. A small light shaped like a child. Vision ended. Everyone gasped for air like they had been underwater. Sergeant Dallin fell to his knees, his voice weak. "What was that?" "What did we see?" Solari answered, "Something old, something broken, something that wants to live again." The radio spoke once more. "You have 7 days," it said. Then silence returned, thicker than before. Commander Lena looked at the girl, looked at the stars, looked at the snow falling once again, and whispered, not to anyone in particular, "We are part of something much bigger, and we are not ready." The morning came with no sun, no light, no warmth, just a thick gray sky pressing down like a heavy blanket, and silence so deep it felt like the planet had stopped turning, like time itself was holding its breath inside the outpost. No one spoke for a long time, the events of the night still echoing in every corner, every shadow, every heartbeat. Yuri sat in the center of the room, her eyes closed, her small hands resting on her knees, her chest rising and falling like she was listening to something far away, something only she could hear. Commander Lena stood near the window, her face hard, her thoughts spinning as she stared into the white void outside. Her voice low as she asked the question no one wanted to say out loud. What if they want her back, not to protect her, but to use her? Solari turned quickly, her voice sharp. They cannot have her. She is not a weapon. She is a child. Private Corey stepped forward, his eyes cold, but his voice calm and heavy. Maybe she is both. Maybe she is something we do not understand, something too dangerous to protect her. Ven looked down at his tablet, his hands shaking slightly, the readings from the night before still glowing on the screen, symbols old and pulsing with energy, the same ones Yari had drawn, the same ones now appearing in the walls of the outpost. He spoke softly, almost to himself. This outpost was never just a research site. It was built on top of something old, something sleeping, and now it is waking. Sergeant Dallin entered from the side room where he had been checking the emergency systems, his face pale, his words slow. The lower floor is changing, metal walls shifting on their own new paths, opening doors we never built. Yari opened her eyes and stood slowly, the symbols around her fading into the air like smoke, her voice calm. They are not doors, they are memories, and they lead to what they were trying to hide from Mesh. Walked toward the stairs that now glowed faintly with blue light. Her mother followed close behind, but Commander Lena raised a hand and stepped in their path. "Tell me where this goes." Lena Eskad. Yari looked up, her face calm. "This goes to the center, to the place where they buried." "What?" "I am Private Corey," raised his weapon slightly, not aiming, just holding it high enough to remind everyone that fear was still strong in the room. "If she is a weapon, then we cannot let her reach it." Solari stepped between him and her daughter, her voice trembling with anger. "Then shoot me first, because she will not walk alone." Lena said nothing for a moment, then nodded to Sergeant Dallin, who lowered the weapon gently and stepped aside. The others followed slowly, their steps heavy, as they walked down into the new level that should not have existed. The stairs led to a large round chamber, walls smooth and black, symbols pulsing like veins, lights rising from the floor as they stepped in, the air thicker with each breath in. The center was a pillar made of strange crystal, dark but glowing from within like a heartbeat waiting to whack. Yari walked forward, her hands trembling, her breath slow. "This is it. This is the memory. This is what they could not destroy." Dr. Ven scanned the crystal, his eyes wide, his voice full of disbelief. "This is not a machine. This is alive. Or it was alive once, and she is connected to it." Yuri touched the surface gently, and the whole room shook, not with violence, but with recognition. The walls lit up, the symbols floated, the air hummed like a song being remembered. She closed her eyes again and whispered, "I remember I was not born. I was made not by hands but by voices, old voices who knew the dark was coming." Crystal opened slowly like a flower blooming in reverse, and inside was light, not bright, but deep like the core of a Star like the beginning of time, the light flowed into Yari, and her eyes turned white, her body lifted an inch above the ground, her hair floating like she was underwater, her voice now not hers alone, but layered with many sounds. We were the guardians. We failed, we were scattered across time, and now one has returned. The room pulsed again, and suddenly everyone saw flashes again, vision stars. Burning ancient warships, falling cities vanishing into dust, and in the center always a figure glowing. A child walking through fire untouched, then it stopped. Yari stood on the floor again, her eyes normal, her breath fast, her hands cold. Lena walked to her slowly and asked, "What did you see? What are you now?" Yari whispered, "I am the last door, and if they take me, they will open everything they lost." Solari wrapped her arms around her daughter, tears on her face. "I thought I was saving her, but I was just hiding her from the truth." Private Corey stood silent, his weapon now lowered, his face pale. "Commander." Lena looked at the group, then back at the pillar, then up toward the ceiling, as if she could see the ship still waiting in the sky. Then she said, "We must decide now. Do we protect her, or do we prepare for the end?" The sky above the outpost turned darker. Then night, though it was still midday, the snow stopped falling, as if the storm itself had run away from what was coming. From the edge of the horizon, shadows began to rise. Not like smoke, not like clouds, but like living things crawling through the air, slow and silent and full of hunger. Inside the outpost, alarms screamed, lights blinked, weapons were loaded, but none of it felt enough. Nothing felt enough. Yari stood at the center of the main room, her hands glowing faint blue, her eyes half closed. Her voice low as she whispered to the machines around her, "They are near," she said. "Not just the scouts, not just the hunters. The mind behind them is coming now, the one who remembers the war, the one who remembers me." Commander Lena gave orders, "Fast and sharp, lock every door, seal the lower level, bring power to the shields, double the guard, and stay off the roof." Sergeant Dallin led the team to the walls, their rifles ready, their hearts full of questions with no time for answers. Private Corey checked the cameras again, but the screen showed only snow and static until one image cleared, and something stepped into view. A shape tall and thin and wrong like a shadow with teeth. It walked through the storm without leaving footprints, and every sensor it passed began to die. Lena looked at the creature on the screen and said softly, "This is not a fight. This is a test." Dr. Ven worked beside Yari, trying to understand the ancient systems she had awakened. His hands moved fast across glowing panels that spoke in symbols older than words. He asked, "Yari, can this place protect us? Can you stop them?" Yari answered without turning, her voice strange and layered, "They do not come to break walls. They come to take minds. If you lose your thoughts, they win. If you lose your will, they feed." Outside, the first impact hit the outer wall, not an explosion, just a pressure like a giant breath pushing inward. The metal groaned, the lights flickered, the air turned colder. The soldiers fired into the snow, their bullets cutting through fog and shadow, but nothing fell, nothing bled. Corey shouted, "They are not real, they are not here." But something grabbed him from behind and pulled him halfway through the wall, his scream echoing until it was Goni raised her hands and light shot from her palms. A wave of blue energy burst outward, freezing the walls in glowing lines. The creatures screamed not with mouths, but with the air itself. Solari held her daughter steady, whispering words from a language long forgotten, proud and afraid at the same time. Commander Lena stood by the north window, her rifle in hand, her voice steady, even as the glass cracked under invisible force. She called to the team, "Hold the line, we stand until the last breath." Outpost shook again, this time from below, cracks spreading across the floor, the ancient power beneath them now waking fully. Dr. Then shouted, "The core is responding to her. She is not just protecting us, she is connecting us to something beyond." Yari stepped forward, her feet not touching the floor, her voice louder than before. "I was not meant to fight, but to choose. I must decide who is worthy of the memory, who carries the last light." The shadows screamed louder, and the sky above tore open, not with sound but with light. A ship descended, massive and silent, and shaped like a wound in the air. It hovered above the outpost, its presence pulling gravity and thought and hope from everything below inside the outpost. Everyone fell to their knees. Except Yari, who now glowed like a star, her hands raised, her eyes white, her voice pure. She spoke in a tongue none of them knew, but all could feel, like warmth, like sorrow, like fire. The ancient systems in the outpost rose around her, floating like broken pieces of a puzzle coming back together. The shadows froze in place as if unsure what was now happening. Then a beam of light shot from the ship toward the outpost, but it never reached the walls. Instead, it bent and twisted and folded into itself, disappearing into nothing. Yari had stopped it without touching it, without fear. The ship above moved for the first time, its sides shifting like metal, breathing, its mouth opening not to attack, but to speak. A voice echoed across the sky, across minds, across memories. You still hold the fire, it said. You still guard the forgotten. Yari answered with only one word: leave. The ship paused, then turned slowly and vanished into the clouds. The shadows below sank into the snow and were gone. Inside the outpost, silence returned, but this time it felt like peace. Yari lowered her hands, her body shaking, her breath short. Solari caught her and held her close. The child was safe, but changed. Commander Lena looked around at the broken walls, at the frozen soldiers, at the quiet machines, and she said to no one and to everyone, we are not alone, and never were. The snow had stopped falling, and the wind had gone silent, and the sky above the outpost turned from gray to soft blue, like a wound slowly healing, like the planet itself was breathing again after holding pain for too long inside the broken outpost. Walls were cracked, lights were dim, and people moved slowly, like shadows of who they once were, like souls walking through smoke after fire. Yari lay asleep in her mother's arms, her face calm, her breath steady, her hands still glowing faintly with the memory of what she had become. Solari sat quietly holding her child, whispering songs from stars. No one else had ever seen songs of peace, songs of sleep, songs of old light. Commander Lena walked through the rooms, speaking softly to each survivor, checking wounds, checking hearts, checking who still had hope in their eyes and who had given it away. She moved with quiet steps, her thoughts full of weight, full of questions that had no answers, only choices. Sergeant Dallin stood near the command table, staring at what remained of the maps and readings and data. Everything burned, everything cracked, except one signal still strong, still blinking, a signal from the core. Below, Dr. Ven typed slowly, his hands sore, his mind numb, translating what he could from the final burst of symbols Yari had released before falling into sleep. The message was not a warning, it was a question. Are you ready? Private Corey sat in silence, his eyes lost somewhere far, his hands no longer holding a weapon, just holding the edge of a chair, like it could stop the shaking inside his bones. Lena gathered the group in the main room, the heater buzzing weakly, the walls groaning under their own weight, and she asked them what comes next. No one answered for a while. Then Solari spoke, her voice clear. We leave, we take her far from this place. She has done enough, her path has been walked. She is only a child. Dr. Ven disagreed, his voice slow. This was never about war. It was about memory, about what we forgot about, what we once promised to protect. Lena looked at the girl, still resting, still glowing, and said, maybe the real question is not what she is, but what we are. They all looked at one another, some with fear, some with doubt, some with hope as fragile as glass. Yari opened her eyes slowly, her voice a whisper. You must choose, not with weapons, not with fear, but with kindness, or silence will come. Again outside, the snow began to melt for the first time in years. Green broke through white and light touched the ground without being eaten by the dark. The ship in the sky was gone, but its echo remained, not in sound, but in feeling, a presence still watching, still waiting, still listening. A new signal arrived on the radio, not from the enemy, not from Central Command, but from another human colony nearby. They had seen the lights, they had seen the shadows, and they were afraid. Lena picked up the mic and answered, her voice steady. We survived, we are still here, and we are not alone anymore. The voice on the other side was silent for a moment, then said, we want to learn, we want to help. And for the first time Lena smiled. Ari stood with help from her mother, her steps Soft but sure, she walked to the center of the room, looked at each person, her voice soft. You were afraid, but you chose mercy. You chose to shelter us when no one else would. That is what saved you, not power, not walls, but kindness. She placed her hand on the table, and a new map appeared glowing across its surface, not of stars, not of war, but of memories waiting to be shared. Dr. Ven stared in wonder. This is not a weapon. This is a gift. Lena nodded slowly. This is our chance to be more than what we were. Rivet. Corey stood and said nothing, just gave a small nod as if finally understanding something that could not be spoken. Solari held her daughter close, her voice trembling. She is still a child. Let her live, not as a key, not as a message, but as herself. Yuri smiled gently and whispered, I can be both. Outside, the clouds moved like curtains, revealing a sky full of stars, not dark, not cold, but full of possibility. The outpost stood quiet, but alive. The people inside it, no longer just survivors, no longer just soldiers, but something new, something brave, something human, and above them, far above, something watched, something waited, but this time it did not come to take, it came to see. If they had changed. Yari stepped outside, felt the sun on her skin, saw the world breathing again, and said softly, they will come again one day, but we will be ready, not with fear, but with open hands, not with fire, but with memory, because now we remember who we are.